Teenage girl refuses to eat with family. Sister follows her and screams at what she finds. The Richardson family dinner table had always been a sanctuary. For as long as Lily could remember, this mahogany heirloom had hosted not just meals, but milestone celebrations, homework sessions, board games, and countless conversations that stitched together the fabric of their family narrative. But lately, the table felt incomplete. The empty chair across from Lily had become a silent reminder of her sister's gradual disappearance from their lives. "Emma? Dinner's ready." Their mother, Catherine, called up the stairs for the third time, her voice maintaining its cheerful tone even as the corners of her mouth tightened with concern. Lily pushed her green beans around the plate, avoiding eye contact with her father, who was scrolling through emails on his phone between bites. The only sound in the dining room was the soft clinking of silverware against plates, the absence of Emma's laugh or even her complaints feeling louder than any noise. "I'll go get her," Lily finally offered, pushing back from the table. At 14, she was 2 years younger than Emma, but lately felt decades older than her once vibrant sister. "No, let her be," David, their father, said without looking up from his phone. "If she wants to starve, that's her choice. I'm done fighting this battle." Catherine set down her fork with a decisive clink. "David, please. She's 16. This isn't about defiance, something's wrong." "What's wrong is that we've catered to her moods for months now," David replied, finally setting his phone aside. "Every teenager goes through phases. The more attention we give this behavior, the longer it'll continue." Lily slid back into her chair, disappearing into the familiar territory of her parents' disagreement. This conversation had played out with increasing frequency over the past 3 months, ever since Emma had started withdrawing from the family. It had begun subtly, Emma skipping a family movie night here, eating dinner in her room there, all explained away with homework or fatigue. But gradually, the excuses had given way to silence, doors closed without explanation, and empty chairs at dinner. "Maybe she's just not hungry," Lily suggested weakly, though she knew better. Emma hadn't eaten with the family in nearly 2 weeks now. Even on taco night, her sister's favorite, Emma had remained sequestered upstairs. Catherine sighed, fixing Lily with a gentle smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Maybe, sweetheart. Would you take this plate up to her? She might eat something if we leave her be." Lily nodded, grateful for the excuse to escape the tension. She carefully arranged Emma's dinner on a plate, adding an extra scoop of mashed potatoes and gravy, comfort food that her sister had once demolished with enthusiasm. The journey up the stairs felt longer than usual, each step weighted with apprehension. In the upstairs hallway, soft music filtered through Emma's closed door, some melancholy indie song Lily didn't recognize. She balanced the plate in one hand and knocked softly with the other. "Em? I brought you dinner." The music volume lowered slightly, but no voice invited her in. Lily waited 10 seconds, then 15, before knocking again. "I'm not hungry." Emma's voice finally came through, flat and distant, as though she were speaking from much farther away than just behind the door. "Mom made your favorite gravy," Lily persisted, leaning her forehead against the cool wood of the door. "The kind with the little bits of mushroom." "I said I'm not hungry, Lily. Just leave it outside the door if you have to." Lily swallowed hard, fighting the stinging in her eyes. "You have to eat something, Em. God, why can't everyone just leave me alone?" The volume of Emma's voice rose slightly, the first real emotion Lily had heard from her in weeks, even if it was irritation. "I'll eat when I want to eat. I don't need a babysitter or a lecture." "No one's lecturing you," Lily said, aware that her voice had taken on the placating tone her mother often used with difficult customers at her real estate office. "We're just worried." A bitter laugh came from behind the door. "Worried? Dad hasn't looked up from his phone long enough to notice me in months. And Mom's too busy trying to pretend everything's perfect to actually see anything." The accusation stung, partly because Lily couldn't entirely disagree. Her father's investment banking job had been consuming more of his attention lately, and her mother did have a talent for papering over uncomfortable realities with cheerful denial. But still, this was family. "They're trying, Lily said softly. "We all are." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the faint music still playing in Emma's room. Finally, the door opened just wide enough for Emma's arm to reach out. Her sister's hand, paler and thinner than Lily remembered, took the plate. "Thanks," Emma muttered, already beginning to close the door. Before it shut completely, Lily caught a glimpse of her sister's face, gaunt, with shadows beneath her once bright eyes. But what struck Lily most was the vacancy in Emma's expression, as though something vital had been drained away, leaving only a shell behind. The door clicked shut, and Lily stood there for several moments, staring at the posters and photographs that adorned the outside of Emma's door, remnants of a happier time. A Polaroid from last summer's lake trip showed the two sisters, arms around each other's shoulders, squinting into the sun with identical grins. Emma's long blonde hair had been lighter then, sun-streaked and healthy. In the small square of photo paper, her blue eyes sparkled with a joy that now seemed like a distant memory. "She take it?" Catherine asked when Lily returned to the dining room. "Yeah," Lily confirmed, sliding back into her chair. "But she doesn't want company." David folded his napkin and placed it beside his empty plate. "See? She's eating. This is just normal teenage drama. When I was her age, I barely spoke to my parents for a year." "And how did that work out for your relationship with them?" Catherine asked, her tone gentle but pointed. David's expression clouded. His relationship with his parents had remained strained until their deaths 3 years ago, a fact that hung in the air between them. "That's different," he said finally. "My parents were controlling. We're giving Emma space." "There's space, and then there's abandonment," Catherine replied. "I'm not sure we're on the right side of that line anymore." The conversation deteriorated from there, retreating to familiar territory. Catherine wanted to consider therapy. David thought it would only legitimize what he saw as attention-seeking behavior. Lily tuned them out, her mind stuck on the hollow look in her sister's eyes. That wasn't attention-seeking. That was something else entirely, something that frightened Lily in a way she couldn't articulate. Later that night, after completing her homework and scrolling mindlessly through social media for an hour, Lily found herself drawn back to Emma's door. The house was quiet now, her parents having retreated to their bedroom at the opposite end of the hallway. Emma's light still shone from beneath her door, a thin yellow line in the darkness. Lily hesitated, then knocked softly. "Em? You still up?" No response came, but Lily could hear movement inside the room. She pressed her ear against the door, catching the sound of drawers opening and closing, then what sounded like the window sliding up. "Emma," she called again, louder this time, a thread of alarm winding through her voice. When no answer came, Lily tried the doorknob, expecting to find it locked as usual. To her surprise, it turned easily in her hand. She pushed the door open cautiously, peering into her sister's room. The bedroom was immaculate, suspiciously so. Emma had always been the messier of the two, her creative chaos spilling across every surface. But now, the desk was organized, the floor clear, and the bed made with hospital corners. The only disruption to the perfect order was the dinner plate on the desk, food barely touched. What caught Lily's attention, however, was the open window, curtains billowing gently in the October breeze. She rushed over, heart pounding, and looked out. Below, silhouetted in the glow of the streetlight, a slender figure was walking briskly away from the house. "Emma." Lily's first instinct was to call out, but something stopped her. This wasn't a spontaneous midnight stroll, this was deliberate. The packed backpack she'd glimpsed on Emma's shoulders, the careful silence, the meticulously cleaned room, Emma had planned this. Without thinking twice, Lily grabbed her hoodie from her own room and slipped downstairs, careful to avoid the creaky third step. She snatched her house key from the hook by the door and slipped out into the night, pulling the door closed with a soft click behind her. The suburban streets of their Midwest town were quiet at this hour, most windows dark, most families already settled in for the night. The air held the crisp edge of mid-autumn, leaves crunching beneath Lily's sneakers as she kept a careful distance behind her sister. Emma walked with purpose, head down, hands stuffed into the pockets of her oversized denim jacket. She didn't look back once, seemingly convinced of her solitude. They walked for nearly a mile, leaving their affluent neighborhood behind and entering the older part of town. Here, the houses were smaller, closer together, with cars that had seen better decades parked in cracked driveways. Emma turned down a side street that Lily didn't recognize, approaching a small, run-down house with peeling blue paint and a sagging front porch. Lily hung back, concealing herself behind a large oak tree at the corner. From this vantage point, she watched as Emma climbed the porch steps and knocked on the door, not hesitantly, but with the confidence of someone who had done this before, someone who expected to be welcomed. The door opened, spilling yellow light onto the porch. A tall figure stood in the doorway, features indistinct from Lily's position. Emma stepped forward, and to Lily's surprise, the figure embraced her sister in what looked like a warm, familiar hug before ushering her inside. The door closed, and the porch fell back into shadow. Lily stood frozen, unsure what to do. Who lived in that house? Why was Emma sneaking out to visit them? The questions multiplied in her mind, each more troubling than the last. Should she knock on the door herself? Call her parents? Go home and pretend she'd seen nothing? Before she could decide, the front door opened again. This time, two figures emerged onto the porch, Emma and an older woman with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a bun. They sat on the porch steps, the woman's arm around Emma's shoulders. Even from a distance, Lily could see her sister's body language change, the rigid tension melting away as she leaned into the woman's embrace. Curiosity overcoming caution, Lily crept closer, moving from shadow to shadow until she reached a hedge bordering the property. From here, she could hear fragments of conversation carried on the night air. "Can't keep doing this, Emma," the woman was saying, her voice gentle but firm. "They need to know." "They wouldn't understand," Emma replied, her voice thick. "Dad would just say I'm being dramatic, and Mom would try to fix it with a shopping trip or something equally superficial." "You don't know that for certain," the woman countered. "Parents can surprise you." "Not mine," Emma said with finality. "Besides, what would I even say? Hey, by the way, I've been hiding the fact that I'm falling apart for months and now I don't know how to stop." The woman sighed, squeezing Emma's shoulder. "Something like that, yes. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes." "I just need a little more time," Emma pleaded. "The group sessions are helping. I feel less alone when I'm here." "And we're glad to have you," the woman assured her. "But this isn't a solution, honey. It's a band-aid." Lily shifted her weight, trying to hear better, when her foot came down on a dry twig. The sharp crack seemed deafening in the quiet night. Both Emma and the woman looked up sharply, peering into the darkness. "Who's there?" the woman called, standing protectively. Lily froze, heart hammering. She could run, but that would only make more noise. Caught between exposure and discovery, she hesitated too long. "I see you behind that hedge," the woman said, her voice firmer now. "Come out where we can see you." With no other option, Lily stepped forward, emerging from the shadows into the pool of porch light. The moment Emma recognized her, her face transformed from alarm to fury. "Lily? What the hell? Did you follow me?" Emma stood, hands clenched at her sides. I was worried about you," Lily stammered, suddenly feeling very young and very foolish. "You've been acting so strange, and then I saw you climbing out the window." "So you decided to stalk me?" Emma's voice rose. "God, can't I have any privacy? Any life that isn't under constant surveillance?" "Emma," the woman said quietly, placing a hand on her arm. She was concerned. "That's not a crime." Emma shook off the woman's touch. "You don't understand. This was the one place I could just be. Without pretending. Without the weight of their expectations." She glared at Lily. "And now you've ruined even that." Lily felt tears welling in her eyes. "I didn't mean to ruin anything. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. Do I look okay to you?" Emma demanded, spreading her arms wide. For the first time, Lily noticed how loose Emma's clothes hung on her frame, how the denim jacket that had once fit perfectly now enveloped her like a shroud. Girls, the woman interjected firmly. This isn't productive. Emma, your sister cared enough to follow you more than a mile in the dark. That's not spite, that's love. She turned to Lily. And you, young lady, while your concern is commendable, following someone secretly isn't the right approach. Lily nodded miserably. I'm sorry. I just didn't know what else to do. The woman studied her for a moment, then sighed. Well, since you're here, you might as well come inside. I think it's time for some honest conversation. Margaret, no, Emma protested, but the woman, Margaret, held up a hand. Emma, secrets have power only in darkness. Maybe it's time to let in a little light. She gestured to the open door. Just your sister. Just for tonight. Then you can decide together what to tell your parents. Emma looked between Margaret and Lily, conflict written across her features. Finally, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Fine. But this doesn't change anything. Margaret led them into the small house, which was modest but warm and welcoming. The living room was arranged with several comfortable-looking chairs and couches in a circle. Pamphlets and books were stacked neatly on a coffee table, and a bulletin board on one wall held flyers and photographs. As Lily glanced at them, her heart sank. One flyer in particular caught her eye: Teen Crisis Support Group, every Tuesday and Thursday, July 9 p.m. Margaret gestured for them to sit on a worn but comfortable-looking sofa while she disappeared into the kitchen. Emma perched on the edge of the cushion, as far from Lily as possible, staring at the floor. This is a teen crisis center? Lily asked quietly, realization dawning. That's where you've been going. Emma didn't answer, but her silence was confirmation enough. Margaret returned with 3 mugs of hot chocolate, setting them on the coffee table before taking a seat across from the sisters. I'm Margaret Holloway, she said to Lily. I'm a licensed counselor, and I run this youth support center. Your sister has been attending our group sessions for about 2 months now. Group sessions for what? Lily asked, though a part of her already knew the answer. Margaret looked at Emma, clearly giving her the space to explain. When Emma remained silent, she sighed. We provide support for teens dealing with various issues: depression, anxiety, trauma, family conflicts. Emma came to us after. I tried to hurt myself, Emma interrupted flatly, finally looking up. Her eyes were hard, challenging, as if daring Lily to recoil or judge. Is that what you wanted to know, Lily? Why I've been so weird? Why I don't want to sit around the dinner table pretending everything's fine when it feels like I'm drowning? The words hit Lily like physical blows. She stared at her sister, trying to process what she was hearing. Emma, confident, artistic, vibrant Emma, had tried to harm herself. The sister who had taught Lily to ride a bike, who had stood up to middle school bullies on her behalf, who had seemed so self-assured and unshakable. When? Lily managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. 2 months ago, Emma replied, her gaze dropping back to the floor. The night of Dad's big promotion celebration. I excused myself early, remember? Said I had a headache? Lily nodded numbly. She remembered the fancy restaurant, the champagne toast their parents had let them join with sparkling cider, the speeches about success and family support. Emma had seemed quiet that night, but Lily had attributed it to the formal setting and the focus on their father. While you were all celebrating, I was in the bathroom with a razor blade, Emma continued, her voice eerily calm. I wasn't planning to end everything. I just needed to feel something, anything, other than the emptiness. But I cut too deep. There was so much blood. Her voice trailed off, and she wrapped her arms around herself as if suddenly cold. Margaret picked up the thread gently. Emma called our crisis line. I talked with her while a colleague dispatched emergency services to the restaurant. We managed to keep it quiet, the staff thought she'd had an allergic reaction. Emma convinced the ER doctor not to tell your parents the full truth, saying it was an accident while shaving. But why? Lily asked, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. Why wouldn't you tell us? Tell me? Emma laughed bitterly. Come on, Lily. Look at our family. We don't do problems. We don't do messy emotions. Dad works 80 hours a week to avoid dealing with anything real, and Mom redecorates the house every time she feels a feeling she doesn't want to examine. That's not fair, Lily protested, though the words rang hollow even to her own ears. Isn't it? When was the last time you saw Dad cry? Or heard Mom talk about anything that wasn't perfectly positive? Our family doesn't have the tools for this. I'm the defective one, the one who can't keep pretending. Margaret leaned forward. Emma, that's your depression talking. Having these feelings doesn't make you defective. Emma shrugged. Maybe. But it does make me different from them. Not from me, Lily said suddenly, surprising herself with the fierceness in her voice. You're not different from me, Em. Her sister looked at her then, really looked at her, for what felt like the first time in months. You don't understand what it's like, Lily. Then help me understand, Lily pleaded. You've always been the one person I could talk to about anything. When did that change? When did you decide I couldn't handle your truth? Emma was quiet for a long moment. It wasn't about you, she finally said, softer now. I didn't want to drag you down with me. You're so light. So hopeful. I didn't want to be the one to change that. But I'm not a child, Emma. I'm your sister. Your darkness doesn't scare me, losing you does. The words hung in the air between them, raw and honest. Emma's carefully constructed walls seemed to waver, vulnerability flickering across her face. Margaret watched them with approval. This is exactly the kind of conversation that healing requires, she said. Emma, your sister has demonstrated tonight that she's stronger than you've given her credit for. Perhaps your parents are too. Emma shook her head. You don't know them like I do. Maybe I don't, Margaret conceded. But I know that secrets like this grow heavier with time. They become barriers that separate us from the people who love us, even when those people are imperfect. She paused, considering her next words carefully. Emma, I've respected your wishes to keep your parents uninformed. But as I've told you before, as a minor, your continued treatment requires parental consent. I've given you time to approach them yourself, but that time is running out. Emma's head snapped up. You said you wouldn't tell them. And I won't, not tonight, Margaret assured her. But this can't continue indefinitely. Your parents need to know what's happening with their daughter. If not from you, then eventually, it will have to come from me or another mandatory reporter. The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Lily watched her sister struggle with this reality, emotions warring across her face, fear, anger, resignation. What if? Lily began hesitantly, what if we told them together? You wouldn't have to do it alone, Em. Emma looked at her skeptically. And say what? Hey guys, surprise, your perfect daughter is actually falling apart inside? No, Lily replied thoughtfully. Maybe we start smaller. Maybe we just tell them you've been coming here, that you've been having a hard time. We don't have to explain everything at once. Margaret nodded encouragingly. That's a sensible approach. Opening the door to conversation is the important first step. The details can come later, when trust has been established. Emma didn't respond immediately, staring instead at her hands. Lily noticed for the first time the faint white line across her sister's left wrist, partially hidden by a leather bracelet. The physical evidence of Emma's pain made everything suddenly, terribly real. I don't know if I can, Emma finally whispered, her voice cracking. Lily moved closer on the couch, bridging the gap between them. With cautious tenderness, she took her sister's hand. You don't have to do it alone, Em. Not anymore. Emma looked up, tears glistening in her eyes. You don't understand what you're signing up for, Lily. I'm not just sad. It's like I'm broken in ways I don't know how to fix. Then we'll figure it out together, Lily said firmly. That's what family is supposed to be for, right? Not just the easy parts, but the hard stuff too. For the first time that night, perhaps for the first time in months, a ghost of a smile touched Emma's lips. When did my little sister get so wise? I had a good teacher, Lily replied, squeezing Emma's hand. Margaret watched their exchange with a gentle smile. You girls have a strong bond. That's a powerful foundation for healing. She checked her watch. It's getting late. Your parents must be worried. The mention of their parents brought reality crashing back. Emma tensed, pulling her hand away. They probably haven't even noticed we're gone. Dad's probably asleep, and Mom's probably watching her shows with her wine. Even so, Margaret said, standing, you should get home. It's a school night, and running away from problems, even temporarily, rarely solves them. Lily stood, but Emma remained seated, a new panic crossing her features. What if I can't do this? She asked, looking up at Margaret. What if they react exactly how I expect them to? What if this makes everything worse? Margaret knelt before her, taking both of Emma's hands in her own. Then you come back here. You call me. You remember that your worth isn't determined by their reaction. She looked at Lily, including her in the next statement. Both of you are welcome here, any time. But Emma, give them a chance. Parents are people too, flawed, imperfect, but often capable of more love and understanding than we give them credit for. Emma nodded slowly, then finally stood. Margaret pulled her into a tight hug, whispering something in her ear that Lily couldn't hear. Whatever it was, it seemed to steady Emma, who pulled back with a deep breath and a nod. As they prepared to leave, Margaret handed Lily a card. My direct number, she explained. Day or night, if either of you needs to talk. She hesitated, then added, Lily, what you did tonight, following your sister out of concern, it came from a place of love. But promise me you'll be more direct next time. Secrets have a way of compounding problems. I promise, Lily said, tucking the card into her pocket. The walk home was quiet, but not with the strained silence that had characterized their recent interactions. This was a thoughtful quiet, filled with unspoken questions and cautious hope. Halfway home, without discussion, Emma reached for Lily's hand. Lily took it, marveling at how such a simple gesture could feel so momentous. They slipped back into the house as quietly as they had left, relieved to find the downstairs still dark and quiet. At the top of the stairs, they paused outside their respective bedroom doors. Lily whispered, I meant what I said. Whatever happens next, we do it together. Emma studied her for a long moment. I'm scared, Lil, she admitted, her voice barely audible. I've been hiding for so long, I don't know how to be seen anymore. One day at a time, Lily replied, the phrase echoing something she'd heard Margaret say. Maybe tomorrow we just focus on eating breakfast together. The rest can wait until you're ready. Emma nodded, the ghost of a smile touching her lips again. Breakfast. I think I can manage that. As Lily slipped into her own room, the weight of the night's revelations settled fully upon her. Her sister, her idol, her constant since childhood, had been suffering silently while Lily had been oblivious. The guilt was overwhelming, tears threatening again as she changed into pajamas and crawled into bed. But alongside the guilt was something else, a fierce protectiveness, a determination that she would not be blind to Emma's pain again. Whatever came next, conversations with their parents, therapy, medication, the long road of recovery, Lily would be there, eyes open, heart ready. In the darkness of her room, she made a silent promise to the sister just one wall away, you are not alone. Not anymore. Never again. The morning arrived with the gentle persistence of autumn sunlight filtering through Lily's curtains. For a moment, she lay disoriented, the events of the previous night seeming more like a vivid dream than reality. But the business card on her nightstand, Margaret Holloway, youth crisis counselor, confirmed everything. Her sister was in pain, and today would be the first step toward addressing it. Lily dressed quickly, listening for sounds of movement in the house. The familiar rhythm of her mother preparing breakfast drifted up from the kitchen, the clink of plates, the sizzle of bacon, the coffee machine's steady hum. Her father's shower ran in the master bathroom, his off-key rendition of some 80s power ballad barely audible through the walls. Normal sounds. Everyday sounds that had continued uninterrupted while their family silently fractured. Outside Emma's door, Lily hesitated. Would her sister remember her promise about breakfast? Or would last night's vulnerability have retreated behind renewed walls? Taking a deep breath, she knocked softly. "Em? You awake?" To her surprise, the door opened almost immediately. Emma stood there fully dressed, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. The dark circles under her eyes suggested she hadn't slept much, but her gaze was clearer than it had been in weeks. "I'm awake," Emma said quietly. "I was just trying to get my courage up." Lily offered a small smile. "Just breakfast, remember? One step at a time." Emma nodded, squaring her shoulders like a soldier preparing for battle. "Right. Breakfast." They descended the stairs together, Emma trailing slightly behind. In the kitchen, Catherine was sliding French toast onto plates, her back to them as she hummed along to the soft jazz playing from the small speaker on the counter. She turned at the sound of their footsteps, surprise flickering across her face at the sight of Emma. "Good morning, girls," she said, her tone deliberately casual, though Lily caught the quick assessment in her mother's eyes as she took in Emma's appearance. "Perfect timing. French toast is just ready." "Smells good, Mom," Lily said, sliding onto her usual stool at the kitchen island. After a moment's hesitation, Emma took the stool beside her. Catherine placed plates in front of them, her movements betraying a nervous energy. "There's bacon keeping warm in the oven, and I cut up some strawberries. Oh, and there's maple syrup or powdered sugar, whichever you prefer." The forced cheerfulness in her mother's voice made Lily cringe. Had it always been this way? This desperate attempt to maintain normalcy, to paper over the cracks with breakfast foods and bright conversation? David entered the kitchen, adjusting his tie. "Morning, family," he said, reaching for the coffee pot. He did a slight double take at Emma's presence but recovered quickly. "School project due today?" he asked her, the question revealing his assumption that only an academic obligation would bring her downstairs for breakfast. "No," Emma replied, pushing a piece of French toast around her plate. "Just hungry." Their father nodded, clearly unsure how to respond to this development. He checked his watch. "I've got an early meeting. Don't forget, Catherine, dinner at the Martins tonight. 7 o'clock. "The Martins?" Catherine's brow furrowed. "Was that tonight? I thought we agreed I'd go to Lily's parent-teacher conference." David frowned. "That was last week. Tonight is Robert's retirement dinner." "It's important, Catherine." "My conference is important too," Lily interjected, though truthfully, she'd forgotten about it herself until this moment. Her grades were good, these meetings were usually perfunctory. "Well, one of us has to be there," Catherine said, a note of frustration creeping into her voice. "And one of us has to maintain the relationships that keep this family financially stable," David countered, his tone sharpening. "My boss specifically asked if we'd both be attending." "I'll stay home," Emma said suddenly, her voice cutting through the brewing argument. "Lily can go to her conference alone. She's 14, not 4. All eyes turned to Emma, who hadn't volunteered to do anything family-related in months. "That's thoughtful, Emma," Catherine said cautiously, "but I'm not comfortable leaving you alone while we're all out." Emma's expression hardened. "I'm 16, Mom. I'm not going to burn the house down." An uncomfortable silence fell. Lily knew what her mother was really saying. She wasn't comfortable leaving Emma alone not because of her age, but because of the growing unease they all felt about her isolation. "I can stay with Emma," Lily offered, seeing an opportunity. "The conference isn't that important, really." "Absolutely not," David said firmly. "Your education is a priority, Lily." Emma set down her fork with deliberate calm. "Why don't you just say what you're really thinking? You don't trust me to be alone." Catherine sighed. "Emma, that's not, it is," Emma interrupted, her voice unnervingly steady. "And you know what? You're right not to trust me. Because there's something I haven't told you." Lily's heart stuttered in her chest. Was Emma really going to do this now, over French toast, with their father already anxious about work? She reached for her sister's hand under the counter, but Emma had already placed both palms flat on the granite surface, as if bracing herself. "Emma," Lily whispered, a warning in her tone. This wasn't how they discussed approaching it. But Emma continued, her gaze fixed on the plate before her rather than on either parent. "I've been seeing a counselor at a youth crisis center downtown." The kitchen went utterly still. Even the jazz from the speaker seemed to fade into the background. David was the first to react, setting down his coffee mug with a sharp click. "A counselor? What are you talking about?" Emma finally looked up, her eyes meeting her father's. "I'm talking about mental health, Dad. My mental health. I've been struggling for months, and I didn't know how to tell you." Catherine moved around the island, reaching for Emma's shoulder. "Sweetheart, what? Please don't touch me right now," Emma said quietly. Catherine's hand froze mid-air, then withdrew as if burned. "I need to get this out, and I can't if you're both going to start fussing or dismissing me." Her mother retreated a step, hurt evident in her eyes but respecting the boundary. David's expression had shifted from confusion to something darker, more defensive. "How long has this been going on?" he demanded. "And how are you even getting to this place? Who's taking you there?" "I walk," Emma replied simply. "And it's been 2 months. 2 months?" Catherine echoed, her voice rising. "You've been going to some counseling center for 2 months without telling us?" "Emma, that's not okay. We're your parents. We have a right to know these things." "I knew you'd react like this," Emma muttered, shoulders hunching. "This is exactly why I didn't tell you." David's face flushed with anger. "Don't turn this around on us, young lady. You've been lying by omission for months, apparently leaving the house without permission, and now you're putting this on us? That's not how this works." "David," Catherine cautioned, "let's stay calm. Emma's obviously been going through something difficult. And her response was to shut us out completely?" David's voice rose. "To sneak around behind our backs? What kind of solution is that?" "The kind I needed." Emma shot back, her composed facade finally cracking. "What was I supposed to do? You're never home, Dad, and when you are, you're barely present. And Mom," she turned to Catherine, tears now welling in her eyes. "You don't want to hear anything real. Anything that can't be fixed with a shopping trip or a home-cooked meal or a family game night." Catherine stepped back as if slapped. "That's not fair, Emma. I've tried to talk to you. I've knocked on your door countless times." "Talking isn't just asking about homework or what I want for dinner," Emma replied, her voice breaking. "It's being able to say I'm not okay without everyone freaking out or trying to rush in with solutions before they even understand the problem." Lily watched the exchange with growing alarm. This wasn't going at all how she'd imagined. Rather than opening a door to understanding, Emma's revelation was widening the gulf between them. "Guys," she interjected, "maybe we should all take a breath. Emma's trying to tell you something important." David rounded on her. "You knew about this, didn't you? That's why you suddenly care about her eating breakfast with us." Lily hesitated, caught between loyalty to her sister and honesty with her parents. I just found out last night." "Last night?" Catherine's eyes narrowed. "How did you find out last night?" "The trap was sprung." Lily looked helplessly at Emma, who gave a small nod, resignation in her eyes. "I followed her," Lily admitted. "She snuck out her window, and I was worried, so I followed her to the crisis center. That's where I met her counselor, Margaret." "You both snuck out in the middle of the night?" David's voice had reached a dangerous volume. "What the hell is going on in this house? Am I the only one who follows any rules around here?" "Rules?" Emma laughed bitterly. "That's what you're concerned about right now. Not the fact that your daughter has been so depressed she stopped abruptly, the color draining from her face. "She what?" Catherine asked, stepping forward again, alarm replacing hurt in her expression. "Emma, what were you going to say?" Emma shook her head, the momentary courage deserting her. "Nothing. Forget it." Nothing, David pressed, his anger giving way to genuine concern. Finish what you were saying. I can't, Emma whispered, tears now flowing freely. I can't do this. I knew you wouldn't understand. She pushed away from the island, chair scraping loudly against the tile floor, and bolted from the kitchen. Her footsteps pounded up the stairs, followed by the slam of her bedroom door that seemed to reverberate through the entire house. The three remaining family members stood frozen in the aftermath of her departure, the half-eaten breakfast forgotten between them. What just happened? Catherine asked weakly, looking between her husband and younger daughter. What is she not telling us? Lily felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. Emma had tried, in her own abrupt, unplanned way, to open the door. Now it was Lily's turn to make sure it didn't slam shut again. You should sit down, she told her parents quietly. Both of you. Something in her tone must have conveyed the gravity of the situation, because David and Catherine exchanged a worried glance before moving to the kitchen table without argument. Lily took a deep breath, Margaret's card a reassuring weight in her pocket, and joined them. Emma has been struggling. A lot more than any of us realized, she began carefully. The counselor, Margaret, she runs a support group for teens going through hard times. Emma's been attending twice a week. But why wouldn't she come to us? Catherine asked, her voice small. Lily chose her next words with care. Because she didn't think you could handle it. She didn't think our family does difficult emotions well. David's face darkened. That's ridiculous. We've never given her any reason to think, haven't we, though? Lily interrupted, surprising herself with her boldness. Dad, when was the last time you talked about feeling sad or scared or overwhelmed? When have either of you ever shown us that it's okay not to be okay? Her parents stared at her, clearly taken aback by this assessment from their typically agreeable younger daughter. We don't burden you girls with adult problems, David said finally. That's called good parenting. Maybe, Lily conceded, but it also taught Emma that negative feelings are something to be hidden. That they're a burden. She took another steadying breath. Emma tried to hurt herself, Dad. That's what she couldn't say just now. The words fell like stones into still water, sending ripples of shock across her parents' faces. Catherine's hand flew to her mouth, a small, strangled sound escaping her. What do you mean, hurt herself? David asked, his voice suddenly hoarse. I mean she cut herself, Lily said, forcing herself to maintain eye contact despite the tears now blurring her vision. 2 months ago, the night of your promotion dinner. She cut herself deep enough that she needed medical attention. That's impossible, Catherine whispered. She was with us that night. She said she had a headache and went to the bathroom, then the staff said she'd had an allergic reaction to something in the food. Understanding dawned on her mother's face as the pieces clicked into place. Oh my God, she breathed. The bandage on her wrist the next day. She said she'd caught it on a broken bathroom stall door. She lied, Lily confirmed gently. She called the crisis line from the restaurant bathroom. Margaret helped her. David stood abruptly, his chair toppling backward. I need to talk to her. Right now. David, wait, Catherine grabbed his arm. We need to be careful about how we approach this. If she's been hiding this for so long, storming up there demanding answers isn't going to help. So what do we do? He demanded, his voice cracking with barely contained emotion. Sit here while our daughter is upstairs hurting herself? No, Lily said firmly. You listen. Really listen. Not to respond or solve, but to understand. She reached into her pocket and pulled out Margaret's card. And maybe you call someone who can help all of us figure out the next steps. Catherine took the card with trembling fingers, reading the information through tear-filled eyes. Youth Crisis Center, she murmured. How did we not know? Because Emma didn't want you to know, Lily replied simply. And because maybe we've all gotten too good at pretending everything's fine. David sank back into his righted chair, looking suddenly older, the confident investment banker replaced by a frightened father. I don't understand. She's always been so strong, so independent. The happy one. People who seem the strongest sometimes carry the heaviest burdens, Lily said, echoing something she'd heard Margaret tell Emma the night before. And they're often the last ones to ask for help. Catherine wiped her eyes, a newfound determination hardening her features. We need to talk to her. All of us, together. And then we call this Margaret person. I think that's right, Lily agreed. But maybe give her a few minutes to calm down first. David nodded, running a hand over his face. I can't believe we didn't see it. What kind of parents are we? The kind who can learn and do better, Lily said firmly. That's what Emma needs right now. They sat in silence for a few moments, each processing the seismic shift in their family's landscape. The cheerful jazz still played incongruously in the background, a reminder of the normalcy they had tried so desperately to maintain while everything was crumbling beneath the surface. Finally, Catherine stood. I'm going to make her some tea. That's what my mother always did when we needed to have difficult conversations. She moved to the kettle, her actions giving her something concrete to focus on amid the emotional tumult. David checked his watch, then pulled out his phone. I need to call the office. Let them know I won't be in today. Lily watched her father dial with unsteady fingers, heard him explain to his assistant that a family emergency had arisen. No evasions, no minimizing, just the truth. It was a small step, but a significant one. As her parents busied themselves with these preparations, Lily slipped upstairs to check on Emma. The bedroom door was locked, but Lily could hear movement inside, not the frantic energy of further distress, but the measured sounds of someone trying to regain composure. Em, she called softly. It's me. After a moment, the lock clicked, and the door opened just enough for Lily to see her sister's reddened eyes. I shouldn't have done that, Emma said, her voice rough from crying. It was a mistake. No, it wasn't, Lily replied gently. It was brave. And needed. They're coming up in a few minutes. Mom's making tea. Emma gave a watery laugh. Of course she is. Tea fixes everything. They're trying, Em. Dad called work. He's taking the day off. That got Emma's attention. Really? Mr. Never Miss a Meeting is skipping work? For you, yeah, Lily confirmed. You matter more than work, Emma. You always have. They just got lost somewhere along the way. We all did. Emma was quiet for a moment, then opened the door wider. You can come in. If you want. Lily entered the room, noting that the perfect order of the previous night had given way to a more natural disarray, clothes draped over a chair, books open on the desk, a box of tissues on the unmade bed. Signs of life, however chaotic. I don't know what to say to them, Emma admitted, sinking onto her bed. I had this whole speech planned out in my head, but then Dad started talking about rules, and I just lost it. You don't need a speech, Lily said, sitting beside her. Just tell them how you feel. The real stuff, not the edited version you think they want to hear. What if they can't handle it? Then that's on them, not you, Lily replied with a confidence she didn't entirely feel. But I think they might surprise you. They surprised me just now. Emma picked at a loose thread on her comforter. I'm scared, Lily, she confessed quietly. Not just of this conversation. Of everything. Some days I wake up, and it feels like I'm carrying this weight that's going to crush me. And I don't know how to make it stop. Lily took her sister's hand, squeezing gently. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. That's what today is about. A soft knock at the door announced their parents' arrival. Catherine stood in the doorway, a tray of steaming mugs in her hands, David a step behind her, his face a study in restrained emotion. Can we come in? Catherine asked, her voice gentle but firm, not the artificially bright tone she'd been using for months. Emma hesitated, then nodded, shifting to make room on the bed. Lily started to stand, thinking to give the three of them privacy, but Emma's grip on her hand tightened. Stay, she whispered. Please. Lily settled back, a silent promise in the pressure of her fingers. Catherine set the tray on the nightstand and handed out mugs of tea with careful deliberation, the familiar ritual giving structure to the unfamiliar emotional territory. David pulled the desk chair closer to the bed and sat, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, hands clasped tightly together. For a long moment, no one spoke. The steam from the tea curled upward in the morning light, the only movement in the room. "I'm sorry," Emma finally said, her voice small but steady. "For sneaking out. For not telling you what was going on. I thought I could handle it on my own." "No, sweet girl," Catherine replied, her voice thick with emotion. "We're the ones who should be sorry. We should have seen that you were struggling." "How could you?" Emma asked without bitterness. "I worked really hard to hide it." "Because that's what we taught you to do," David said, the realization evident in his tone. "Keep the hard stuff private. Don't let it show." He shook his head. "I thought I was teaching you strength. I never meant for you to feel like you couldn't come to us." Emma stared at her father, clearly surprised by this self-awareness. "I didn't want to disappoint you," she admitted. "You're always so, together. So in control. And I'm just, not." "Oh, Emma," David sighed, running a hand through his hair. "That's an act. Most days, I'm terrified I'm going to make a mistake that costs my clients millions. I lie awake some nights wondering if I'm doing right by this family. Being in control is how I cope with feeling anything but." It was perhaps the most vulnerable Lily had ever heard her father. From Emma's expression, the same was true for her. "Your sister told us what happened," Catherine said gently. "About the night of the promotion dinner. About hurting yourself." Emma's gaze dropped to her lap, where her left hand unconsciously moved to cover her right wrist. "I didn't plan it," she said softly. "It just got too much. Everyone was celebrating, and I felt so empty. Like I was watching my life from outside my body. I just wanted to feel something real again." Catherine moved from her perch on the edge of the bed to kneel in front of Emma, taking both her hands carefully. "Can I see?" she asked. After a moment's hesitation, Emma turned her wrist, revealing the faint scar that had been hidden by long sleeves and bracelets for 2 months. Catherine traced it with gentle fingers, tears spilling unchecked down her cheeks. "I would take this pain from you if I could," she whispered. "I would carry it all myself." "I know, Mom," Emma said, her own tears falling now. "But you can't. No one can. I have to learn how to live with it." "But not alone," David said firmly, joining them on the bed, one hand resting on Emma's shoulder. "Never alone. Not anymore." Lily watched as the three of them leaned into each other, the physical contact bridging what words still couldn't. She felt tears on her own cheeks, but these were different from the frightened, desperate tears of the previous night. These held relief, hope, the first glimpse of morning after a long, dark night. After several minutes, they drew apart, wiping eyes and exchanging watery smiles. "So," David said, clearing his throat, "this counselor, Margaret. Lily gave us her card. I think we should call her today. All of us." Emma nodded, a tentative hope dawning in her expression. "She's been wanting to meet you. She thinks I might need more intensive help than just the group sessions." "Then that's what we'll get you," Catherine said with quiet determination. "Whatever you need. Therapy, medication, a different school environment, anything." "I don't know if I'm ready for all that," Emma admitted. "It feels overwhelming." "One step at a time," David assured her, echoing Lily's earlier words. "We'll start by talking to Margaret, hearing her recommendations. No decisions have to be made today." Emma looked between her parents, searching their faces. "You're really not mad? About me going behind your backs?" "We're concerned," Catherine clarified. "And yes, a little hurt that you didn't feel you could come to us. But mostly, we're grateful you found help, even if it wasn't from us." "And a little in awe of your sister," David added, sending Lily a look of newfound respect. "For knowing something was wrong and having the courage to follow through. For bringing this to us when you couldn't." Lily felt her cheeks warm at the unexpected praise. I just did what anyone would do. No, Emma corrected softly. You did what nobody else did. You saw me, Lily. Really saw me. The words hung in the air between them, a recognition of the unique bond they shared, a bond that had proven strong enough to withstand even this test. David glanced at his watch, then immediately shook his head as if catching himself in an old habit. Let's call this Margaret Person. See if she can fit us in today. All of us? Catherine asked. All of us, he confirmed. This isn't just Emma's journey. It's a family recalibration. Lily felt a surge of pride in her father, in her mother, in her sister, in all of them for finding the courage to step into this unfamiliar territory together. As Catherine went to retrieve her phone, Emma leaned over to Lily, a glimmer of her old self visible beneath the emotional exhaustion. Well, she whispered, that went better than expected. Told you, Lily whispered back. One step at a time. Emma smiled, a real smile, small but genuine. Thank you, she said simply. For following me last night. For screaming at what you found. I didn't actually scream, Lily pointed out. Not out loud, Emma agreed, but I saw your face. You were screaming inside. Lily couldn't argue with that. The shock, the fear, the helplessness she'd felt upon discovering her sister's secret had indeed been a silent scream, one that, thankfully, had finally been heard. The Youth Crisis Center looked different in daylight. What had seemed run-down and somewhat shadowy the night before now revealed itself as a modest but well-maintained Victorian house, its blue paint fresher than Lily had initially thought. Cheerful flower boxes hung beneath the windows, and a small sign by the door read Westbridge Youth Support Services in simple, dignified lettering. The Richardson family sat in their car parked across the street, none of them quite ready to make the first move toward the entrance. David's hands remained on the steering wheel though the engine was off. Catherine fidgeted with her purse strap. Emma stared straight ahead, her face a careful blank. Lily, squeezed between them in the back seat, felt the weight of unspoken anxieties filling the vehicle. It's not too late to reschedule, Catherine offered, her voice artificially light. If you're not feeling up to this today, Emma. Emma shook her head. If we don't do it now, I might lose my nerve. David cleared his throat. Margaret seemed very accommodating on the phone. It was good of her to fit us in on such short notice. She's like that, Emma said softly. She always makes time for the kids who need her. The simple statement hung in the air, a reminder that Emma had found outside what she hadn't been able to access at home, someone who prioritized her needs without question. Lily reached for her sister's hand. Ready? Emma took a deep breath, then nodded. As I'll ever be. Together, the four of them exited the car and crossed the street. David and Catherine followed a step behind their daughters, an unconscious deference to Emma's greater familiarity with this place. At the door, Emma hesitated only briefly before turning the knob and leading them inside. The interior was warm and inviting, walls painted in soft yellows and blues, comfortable furniture arranged to encourage conversation, artwork that Lily realized must have been created by the teens who came here. A bulletin board similar to the one she'd noticed the night before displayed announcements, resources, and photographs of group activities. Margaret emerged from a back office, her face lighting up at the sight of them. Emma, she said warmly, and the Richardson family. I'm so glad you made it. Emma managed a small smile. Hi, Margaret. These are my parents, David and Catherine. It's good to meet you, Margaret said, extending her hand. I've heard a lot about you both. Wish we could say the same, David replied, his tone carefully neutral as he shook her hand. If Margaret was offended by the subtle rebuke, she didn't show it. I understand completely. This is an unusual situation for everyone. But I'm glad we're addressing it now. She gestured toward a door off the main room. Why don't we talk in my office? It's more private. They followed her into a small but comfortable space. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with texts on psychology, adolescent development, and mental health. A desk occupied one corner, but the focus of the room was a seating area with a couch and several armchairs arranged around a coffee table. Bright windows overlooked a small garden in the back of the house. "Please, make yourselves comfortable," Margaret invited, taking one of the armchairs. Emma immediately chose the far end of the couch. Lily sat beside her, while their parents took the remaining armchair and the other end of the couch. The physical arrangement seemed to reflect their emotional positioning, Emma still somewhat separated, Lily the bridge between her and their parents. "First," Margaret began, her voice gentle but professional, "I want to thank you all for coming. Family sessions like this are an important step in the healing process, and it takes courage from everyone involved. We appreciate you making time for us," Catherine said, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "But I have to ask, why didn't you contact us sooner? Our daughter has been coming to you for 2 months, and we had no idea." Margaret nodded, acknowledging the question without defensiveness. "That's a fair concern. In an ideal situation, parents are involved from the beginning. But our primary mission is to provide immediate support to young people in crisis, especially those who don't feel ready to involve their families." "She's a minor," David pointed out. "Legally, Dad," Emma interrupted quietly. "She wanted me to tell you from the start. This was my choice, not hers." "That's true," Margaret confirmed. "I've been encouraging Emma to open up to you both, while respecting her pace. Our crisis services can operate on a consent basis for minors in certain circumstances, especially when the alternative might be no support at all. But I've been clear with Emma that longer-term treatment would require parental involvement." Catherine's expression softened slightly. "So you are giving her a safe space while encouraging her to come to us?" "Exactly," Margaret said with an approving nod. "The goal is never to replace family support, but to help build a bridge toward it when direct communication feels impossible." David leaned forward, his businessman's demeanor giving way to parental concern. "What exactly has Emma been doing here? What kind of help has she been receiving?" With Emma's permission, Margaret began, looking to the teenager for confirmation, which came in the form of a small nod. "I can share that she's been participating in our twice-weekly group therapy sessions for teens experiencing depression and anxiety. She's also had 3 individual sessions with me when she felt she needed additional support." "Depression?" Catherine echoed, the words seeming to catch in her throat. Emma looked down at her hands. "That's what it is, Mom. That's what I've been feeling. This emptiness. Like nothing matters. Like I'm just going through the motions." "But you've always been so bright," Catherine said helplessly. "So full of life." "Depression doesn't always look like sadness," Margaret explained gently. "Especially in teenagers, it can manifest as irritability, withdrawal, loss of interest in activities they once enjoyed. Many high-functioning individuals with depression become experts at presenting a face to the world that hides their internal struggle." "Like father, like daughter," David murmured, surprising them all. When they looked at him, he explained, "I've been thinking about it a lot since this morning. The way I compartmentalize. The way I push through regardless of how I'm feeling. I've always seen it as strength. But if Emma learned that from me..." He trailed off, the implication clear. Margaret nodded thoughtfully. Children learn coping mechanisms from their parents, both healthy and unhealthy ones. But this isn't about assigning blame. It's about understanding patterns so we can establish new ones. "What do we do now?" Catherine asked, voice thick with emotion. "How do we help her?" "That's what we're here to discuss," Margaret replied. "Based on my work with Emma, I believe she would benefit from more structured treatment. Regular individual therapy, possible consultation with a psychiatrist regarding medication options, and continued group support." Emma's head snapped up. "Medication? You never mentioned that before." "It's one option to consider," Margaret said calmly. "Not a requirement. But depression is often rooted in brain chemistry as well as life circumstances. Sometimes medication can help create enough stability to make therapeutic work more effective." "I don't want to be drugged into being happy," Emma protested. "That's not what antidepressants do," Margaret clarified. "They don't create artificial happiness. They help restore balance so that genuine emotions, including happiness, but also appropriate sadness, anger, and other feelings, can be experienced in a manageable way. David ran a hand through his hair. This is a lot to take in. It is, Margaret agreed. And none of these decisions need to be made today. What's important is that you're all here, talking openly about options. Do you think? Catherine hesitated, then forged ahead. Do you think Emma is still at risk of harming herself? The question landed heavily in the room. Emma tensed beside Lily, who reached for her hand again in silent support. Margaret looked directly at Emma. I think that's a question Emma needs to answer honestly. All eyes turned to the teenager, who seemed to shrink under the collective gaze. For a long moment, she was silent, struggling visibly with what to say. Sometimes, she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Not like before. Not with a plan. But there are days when the thought is there. When it feels like it would be easier to just not exist. Catherine made a small, wounded sound. David's jaw tightened, his eyes suspiciously bright. Thank you for your honesty, Margaret said with genuine warmth. That kind of truthfulness takes tremendous courage. What do we do? David asked again, the question directed at no one in particular, his voice strained. How do we keep her safe? By creating an environment where Emma feels she can come to you with these thoughts without fear of overreaction or dismissal, Margaret answered. By taking this seriously without treating her like she's made of glass. By getting her professional help while maintaining normalcy in the areas of her life that are still functioning well. And in practical terms? Catherine pressed. In practical terms, Margaret continued, I recommend removing or securing potentially harmful items from the home, medications, sharp objects, and so on. Not in a way that signals distrust, but as a family decision to prioritize safety. I also suggest establishing regular check-ins, times when Emma knows she can talk about how she's really doing without judgment. We can do that, David said firmly, looking at his daughter. Emma, we can absolutely do that. Emma gave a small nod, though uncertainty still clouded her features. There's something else, Margaret added. Something that often gets overlooked in these situations. She turned to Lily. When one family member is struggling, it affects everyone. Lily, how are you handling all of this? The question caught Lily off guard. Since discovering Emma's secret, she'd been so focused on her sister that she'd barely considered her own feelings. I'm okay, she said hesitantly. Just worried about Emma. It's normal to feel a range of emotions, Margaret told her. Concern, yes, but also confusion, anger, even guilt, wondering if you could have noticed sooner or done something differently. Tears sprang unexpectedly to Lily's eyes. I should have known, she whispered. She's my sister. We share a bathroom, for God's sake. How did I not see? Because I didn't want you to, Emma said, squeezing her hand. I'm good at hiding, remember? Still, Lily insisted. I should have realized something was wrong. We all should have, Catherine added softly. Margaret shook her head. This kind of retrospective blame isn't helpful. What matters is that you did notice eventually, Lily. You took action when many people would have continued to respect Emma's apparent desire for privacy. I followed her without permission, Lily pointed out. That's not exactly respecting boundaries. Sometimes love means knowing when to cross a boundary, Margaret replied. What you did came from concern, not control or curiosity. There's a difference. David cleared his throat. So what's our next step? Do we find Emma a therapist? How do we choose the right one? I can provide referrals, Margaret offered. Several excellent colleagues work specifically with adolescents. And Emma would be welcome to continue attending our group sessions here as a supplement to individual therapy. Emma looked up. I'd like that. The group, it helps. Knowing I'm not the only one who feels this way. Catherine reached across the space between them to touch her daughter's knee. Whatever you need, sweetheart. We'll make it happen. For the next hour, they discussed practical matters, therapist options, potential adjustments to Emma's school schedule to accommodate appointments, strategies for managing particularly difficult days. Margaret provided resources, validated concerns, and gently corrected misconceptions about mental health that emerged in the conversation. By the time they prepared to leave, something had shifted in the family dynamic. The tension hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed from the jagged edges of secrets and fear to the more manageable discomfort of navigating unfamiliar territory together. At the door, Margaret gave Emma a gentle hug. "I'm proud of you," she said simply. "This was a big step." Emma nodded against her shoulder. "Thank you. For everything." As they walked back to the car, David slipped an arm around Emma's shoulders, a gesture both protective and uncertain, as if he wasn't sure whether the contact would be welcomed. After a moment's hesitation, Emma leaned slightly into the embrace. "Ice cream," he suggested, his voice deliberately casual. "There's that place on Maple Street you girls used to love." Lily expected Emma to decline, to retreat back into the safety of her room. But to her surprise, her sister nodded. "Yeah," Emma said. "I'd like that." It was a small thing, just ice cream on an autumn afternoon. But in that moment, it felt like the first tender shoot of something new pushing through soil long barren. The weeks that followed were neither easy nor straightforward. There were appointments with a new therapist, Dr. Chen, whom Emma cautiously approved of after 3 sessions. There was a consultation with a psychiatrist who recommended starting a low dose of an SSRI, leading to a night of intense family discussion before Emma agreed to try it. There were mornings when Emma couldn't face school, days when the medication made her nauseous, evenings when family dinner felt like navigating a minefield of potential triggers. But there were also moments of unexpected connection. David began coming home by 6 3 nights a week, instituting what he called mandatory family downtime, no phones, no work, just board games or movies or simple conversation. Catherine started going to a support group for parents of teens with depression, returning with both greater understanding and the comforting knowledge that they weren't alone in their struggles. Lily and Emma established a weekly sister night, just the two of them, rebuilding the closeness that had frayed without either of them noticing. 3 weeks after their first visit to Margaret's office, Lily sat cross-legged on Emma's bed, watching her sister sort through her closet, a project Emma had spontaneously decided to tackle that morning. "I can't believe how much stuff I have," Emma muttered, holding up a sweater she clearly hadn't worn in years. "When did I become such a hoarder?" Lily smiled, relieved to see her sister engaged in something so mundane, so normal. "Around the same time Mom decided retail therapy was the answer to everything?" Emma snorted, a genuine laugh escaping her. "True. Remember when I got a C in algebra, and she took me shopping for stress relief? And you ended up with 3 identical black cardigans because you were too nervous to tell her you didn't actually want any of them? God, we were so weird about communicating," Emma said, tossing the sweater into a growing donation pile. "Still are, sometimes. Better than we were, though," Lily pointed out. "You actually told Dad his lasagna was too salty last night." Pre-crisis Emma would have eaten it with a smile and then complained to me later. Emma paused in her sorting, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. "That's true. I did, didn't I?" She resumed her task with renewed energy. "Dr. Chen says that's progress, being able to express small negative feelings instead of bottling them up until they become unbearable." "Makes sense," Lily agreed. "How is it going with her, anyway? Do you like her better than Margaret?" "Different, not better," Emma replied. "Margaret was like, I don't know, a lifeline when I was drowning. Dr. Chen is more like a swimming instructor, teaching me how to navigate the water so I don't drown again." She tossed a faded concert t-shirt onto her bed. "You can have that if you want. It's too small for me now." Lily picked up the shirt, a souvenir from a music festival they'd attended with their parents 2 summers ago. A time when Emma had seemed carefree, dancing in the afternoon sun, her laughter audible even over the band's amplifiers. Had the depression already been lurking then, or had it developed later? Lily had asked Emma once, but her sister had been unable to pinpoint when the grayness had first seeped into her world. "Thanks," Lily said, folding the shirt carefully. "So the medicine, is it helping?" Emma considered the question, sitting back on her heels amid the piles of clothing. "I think so. It's subtle. I don't feel magically happy or anything. But the worst days aren't quite as low. And I'm sleeping better." She grimaced slightly. "The dreams are weird, though." "Weird how?" "Just super vivid. Last night I dreamed I was swimming in a pool of Jell-O with our elementary school principal." Emma shook her head. Dr. Chen says that's normal, that the brain is processing differently as the neurotransmitters rebalance or something. Lily nodded, then hesitated before asking the question that had been hovering at the edges of her mind for weeks. Do you ever think about doing it again? Hurting yourself?" Emma was quiet for a long moment, and Lily immediately regretted the question. "Sorry, you don't have to answer that." "I shouldn't have." "No, it's okay," Emma interrupted. "Dr. Chen says it's important not to treat these thoughts like they're shameful or unspeakable." She drew her knees up to her chest, wrapping her arms around them. "The thoughts still come sometimes. But they're less compelling, if that makes sense. Like hearing a song in another room instead of with headphones on. I can acknowledge it without necessarily having to act on it." "That sounds like progress," Lily offered cautiously. "It is." Emma gave a small smile. "And having actual tools to cope helps. The breathing exercises, the thought reframing, even just knowing I can text Margaret or call Dr. Chen if it gets really bad." She reached for Lily's hand. "Or talk to you." Lily squeezed her fingers. "Anytime. Day or night. You know that, right?" "I do now," Emma acknowledged. "I think before. I was so used to being the older sister, the one who had it together. I didn't know how to be vulnerable with you. And I probably didn't make it easy," Lily admitted. "I've kind of had you on a pedestal." "Well, I'm definitely off it now," Emma said with a self-deprecating laugh. "No," Lily corrected gently. "You're still my amazing big sister. You're just human too. That doesn't make me admire you less, maybe even more, actually. It takes a lot of strength to face something like this." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't the desperate tears of that night at Margaret's, or the wounded tears of their first family meeting. These seemed lighter somehow, cleansing rather than drowning. "When did you get so wise, kid?" she asked, brushing them away. "I had a good teacher," Lily replied, echoing her words from the night that had changed everything. Their moment was interrupted by a knock at the door. Their father stood in the doorway, still in his work clothes but with his tie loosened and sleeves rolled up. "Hey, you two," he said, taking in the explosion of clothing around the room. "Productive afternoon?" "Emma's channeling Marie Kondo," Lily explained. "Everything that doesn't spark joy is getting tossed." "Well, I hope this sparks something positive," David said, producing an envelope from behind his back. "It came in the mail today." Emma took it curiously. "It's addressed to me." "From NYU?" Her eyes widened as she tore it open, scanning the contents. "It's about their summer arts program. The one for high schoolers." She looked up at her father in confusion. "But I didn't apply for this." David shifted uncomfortably. "I might have made a few calls. Your art teacher mentioned it months ago, said you had real talent but had missed the application deadline. I thought maybe it would be good for you to have something to look forward to." Emma stared at him, clearly torn between surprise and wariness. "Dad, I appreciate the thought, but I don't know if I'll be ready for something like that by summer. And you can't just fix everything with opportunities and connections." David held up his hands in a gesture of surrender. "You're right. I'm not trying to rush your recovery or push you into anything you're not ready for. If it's too much, we'll decline. But the option is there, if and when you want it." Emma studied the letter again, her expression softening. "I'll think about it." "Thanks, Dad." He nodded, looking uncertain but pleased. "Dinner in 30 minutes. Your mother's trying that new recipe from her cooking class." He rolled his eyes good-naturedly. "Be prepared for experimental cuisine." After he left, Emma examined the NYU materials more closely. "This actually looks amazing," she admitted. 6 weeks in New York, studio access, mentorship from working artists. She set it aside with a sigh. But that's a lot. Being away from home, navigating a new city, the pressure of the program itself. "It's still months away," Lily pointed out. "A lot can change by then." "True," Emma agreed. "Dr. Chen keeps telling me not to make decisions based on how I feel right now, either the good days or the bad ones." She returned to her closet sorting with renewed purpose. "It's something to think about, anyway." Lily watched her sister work, noting the subtle changes of recent weeks. Emma's movements were more deliberate now, less of the frenetic energy or limp disengagement that had characterized her before. Her clothes still hung somewhat loose on her frame, but she'd gained back a few pounds as her appetite gradually returned. Most telling was her willingness to engage with the future again, even if tentatively, even if with caution rather than her former confident planning. Small steps. Fragile progress. But progress nonetheless. Later, as the family gathered around the dinner table, Catherine proudly serving her somewhat oddly textured but aromatic curry, David regaling them with a story about a colleague's unfortunate mishap with the office coffee machine, Emma and Lily exchanging glances at their mother's culinary experiment, Lily felt a cautious optimism take root. This wasn't the end of Emma's struggle, they all knew that. Depression didn't vanish in a few weeks of therapy and medication. There would be setbacks, relapses, new challenges to navigate. The family patterns that had contributed to Emma's isolation wouldn't change overnight either. But they were changing. They were trying. They were talking, really talking, about things that mattered. And for now, that was enough. 6 months later, spring had transformed their Midwest town. The Richardsons' front yard bloomed with daffodils and tulips, Catherine's annual gardening project now assisted by Emma, who had discovered an unexpected therapeutic value in digging her hands into soil. Lily sat on the porch swing, watching her sister deadhead spent flowers with careful attention. The changes in Emma over the months had been gradual but undeniable, like watching a photograph slowly come into focus. "What?" Emma asked, catching Lily's gaze. "Nothing," Lily replied. "Just thinking about how different things are from last fall." "Better different, I hope?" Emma asked. "Definitely better," Lily assured her. "You seem more present." "That's a good way to put it," Emma agreed, pushing the swing gently. "I feel more present. Even on the hard days." And there were still hard days, days when Emma withdrew, when therapy sessions left her drained. But now these days were acknowledged rather than hidden, weathered together rather than in isolation. "Have you decided about NYU?" Lily asked, knowing the deadline was approaching. Emma nodded, excitement lighting her features. "I'm going. Dr. Chen thinks I'm ready, and so do I. 6 weeks is manageable, and they have mental health resources if I need them." "That's amazing, Em. Dad's going to be so excited." "I know," Emma rolled her eyes affectionately. "He's already talking about shipping my art supplies and researching canvas shops in Manhattan." Their father's enthusiasm had become a family joke, his determination to support Emma's art sometimes tipping into well-intentioned over-involvement. It was a vast improvement over his former emotional distance. "Mom's still worried," Emma continued. "She tries to hide it, but I can tell. She's a mom. It's her job to worry," Lily pointed out. "But she'll be okay. We all will." Catherine appeared with lemonade for everyone. As they sat enjoying the spring afternoon, Emma suddenly said, "Mom, I've been thinking about something. I want to talk to your women's group at church. About mental health. About what happened to me." Surprise registered on Catherine's face. "You want to speak publicly about your experience?" "Specifically to your group," Emma clarified. "The moms and grandmas who've known me since I was little, who probably still see me as that perfect Richardson girl." "Are you sure?" Catherine asked carefully. That's a big step, Emma. Dr. Chen and I have been talking about the power of testimony, how sharing our stories can help others who are suffering silently. But why my church group specifically? Because I think they're the ones who need to hear it most, Emma explained. The women who are raising teenagers, or who have grandkids they're worried about. The women who grew up when mental health wasn't discussed openly. Understanding dawned on Catherine's face. You think some of them might be missing signs in their own families. Or dismissing them, Emma agreed. Like we did. Catherine was moved by her daughter's reasoning. I'll speak to Pastor Susan. When were you thinking of doing this? Before I leave for NYU, Emma replied. Dr. Chen thinks it would be a good milestone, a way of owning my story before stepping into a new chapter. 3 weeks later, Lily sat in the church fellowship hall between her father and Margaret. The room was filled with women of various ages, primarily from her mother's generation. Catherine sat in the front row, watching proudly as Emma prepared to speak. Pastor Susan introduced Emma warmly, noting the importance of addressing mental health in their faith community. Emma adjusted the microphone, finding Lily's eyes for reassurance before beginning. Thank you for being here tonight, she started, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. Many of you have known me my whole life. You've seen me in Christmas pageants and bake sales. What you haven't seen, what I worked very hard to hide, was my struggle with depression. A struggle that nearly cost me my life last fall. A ripple of reaction moved through the room as Emma recounted her gradual withdrawal, the emptiness that consumed her, and the night she had harmed herself. She described finding Margaret's crisis center and the night Lily had discovered her secret. I thought I was protecting my family by hiding my pain, Emma explained. But isolation only fed the depression, convinced me that I was fundamentally alone, that no one could possibly understand. With unflinching honesty, Emma spoke about her ongoing recovery, the therapy, medication, difficult family conversations, setbacks, and breakthroughs. She addressed misconceptions about depression, challenging notions that it was simply sadness or something that could be overcome through willpower alone. Depression lies to you, she said. It tells you you're broken beyond repair, that your pain is a burden to others. The most important step in recovery is recognizing these as lies and countering them with truth, even when the truth is hard to believe. As she concluded, Emma's gaze swept the room. I'm sharing my story not for sympathy, but because statistically, in this room, there are people struggling themselves or with loved ones suffering silently. My hope is that by speaking openly, I might make it easier for someone else to seek help. She gestured toward Margaret. There are resources in our community. Faith and professional help aren't mutually exclusive, I've found strength in both. Emma straightened her shoulders. In a few weeks, I'll be heading to New York for a summer arts program. 6 months ago, I couldn't imagine a future beyond the next day. The fact that I'm standing here now is testament not to my strength alone but to the power of honest communication and proper support. She opened the floor to questions. Mrs. Wilkins, who had taught Emma in Sunday school, raised a trembling hand. Emma, I lost my nephew to suicide 5 years ago. How can we create spaces where young people feel safe to share these burdens? I think it starts with how we respond to smaller expressions of pain, Emma answered thoughtfully. When someone says they're stressed or sad, do we immediately try to fix it or minimize it? Or do we make space for those feelings, show that we can handle hearing about pain without becoming uncomfortable? Other thoughtful questions followed about warning signs, balancing privacy with intervention, and communicating with withdrawn teenagers. Emma answered each with remarkable insight, occasionally deferring to Margaret but never shying away from her personal perspective. As the session concluded, David whispered to Lily, "She's amazing. When did she become this advocate?" I think she always had it in her, Lily reflected. Depression buried it for a while, but it didn't destroy it. Margaret touched Lily's shoulder. This is significant. Someone here tonight will find the courage to seek help because of Emma's testimony. The conversations that begin here will continue across town. After Pastor Susan's closing prayer, Lily noticed several women approaching her parents privately, likely sharing their own family struggles for the first time. Emma joined them, exhausted but satisfied. You did it, Lily said, hugging her. I did, Emma agreed. It was terrifying and exhausting and completely worth it. Catherine reported that several women had asked if Emma might speak to their daughters or the youth group. Mental health support for teens is clearly something our community needs to address more openly. We don't have to decide tonight, David added protectively. You've done more than enough. Emma nodded. One step at a time, right? That's what Dr. Chen would say. As they prepared to leave, Emma pulled Lily aside. Thank you for that night. For following me when every instinct probably told you to mind your own business. I'd do it again, Lily said simply. In a heartbeat. Outside, the spring evening was mild, stars emerging in the darkening sky. Emma linked her arm through Lily's as they walked to the car. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't followed you that night? Lily asked. I think about it sometimes, Emma admitted. The path I was on wasn't sustainable. Something would have broken eventually, maybe something that couldn't be fixed. But that's not what happened, Lily reminded her. No, Emma agreed, looking at their parents, then back at her sister. What happened instead was this. Whatever this is becoming. This, Lily suggested, looks a lot like healing. As they drove home, Emma shared what she looked forward to most about New York, the anonymity, actually. Being somewhere where no one knows my story unless I choose to share it. Not the girl who had the breakdown, just Emma. A fresh start, David suggested. Not exactly, Emma clarified. More like the freedom to be my whole self without others' preconceptions. To figure out who I am now, after everything. As they turned onto their street, Lily softly said, We'll miss you. Emma squeezed her hand. I'll miss you too. But I'll be back. The simple assurance carried a deeper promise, that Emma saw a future for herself, that she intended to claim it, that she would return to them by choice. The Richardson family walked together toward their home, the porch light welcoming them back, not to the illusion of perfection they had once maintained, but to the reality of a family learning how to truly see one another. It wasn't the end of their story. Emma's recovery would continue to have ups and downs. But they had crossed the threshold together, from silence into speech, from isolation into connection. And in that crossing, they had discovered that the most powerful revelation wasn't that pain could be survived, but that it could be transformed, into understanding, into compassion, into a bridge between hearts that had forgotten how to reach one another. If this powerful story of Emma's journey through depression and recovery touched your heart, please hit that like button to help us reach more people who need to hear this message. Subscribe to our channel for more real and impactful stories like this one that could make a difference in the life of someone you love. Share with those who need to know they're not alone. Mental health matters, and together we can break the silence. Hit the notification bell to stay updated on new content and comment below with your thoughts or experiences. Your voice matters too.